How charisma is built and learned. Let's begin with something that might surprise you. Something quiet. Something that happens faster than you realize. Before you've said a single word, before you've introduced yourself, before you've even thought about what to say, people have already decided something about you. They've already begun forming an impression. And that impression carries weight. Research shows us that people form trust and charisma judgments in as little as 1/10 of a second. 1/10. That's faster than a blink. Faster than conscious thought. In that brief flicker of time, something ancient and instinctive in the human brain is already at work, scanning, assessing, deciding whether you're someone worth listening to, someone worth following, someone worth trusting. This isn't superficial. It's deeply wired into how we've survived as social creatures for thousands of years. And it all happens before you speak. Now, you might think that's unfair. How can anyone truly know you in a fraction of a second? But the truth is, they're not trying to know everything about you. They're reading something else. Something older. They're reading signals. Signals that have been honed over millennia to communicate safety, confidence, openness, warmth. And those signals live in your body. Scientists call these thin-sliced judgments. And what's fascinating is that charisma can be detected from just a few seconds of silent video. Imagine that. No sound. No words. Just watching someone move through a room, and observers can predict with remarkable accuracy whether that person is seen as charismatic by others. They can sense leadership. They can sense warmth. They can sense presence. All from a few moments of silent observation. This tells us something profound. Charisma isn't hidden in clever words or witty remarks. It's written in the language of the body, in ways we often don't even realize we're broadcasting. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Most first impressions come from nonverbal cues, not words. Studies suggest that when people meet you for the first time, up to 93% of the impression you make comes from how you sound and how you look, not what you actually say. Your tone of voice, your facial expressions, the way you hold yourself, the energy you bring into the space. All of this speaks louder than your resume, louder than your introduction, louder than your credentials. Your body is constantly communicating, and people are constantly listening. So what exactly are they picking up on? Researchers have found that expressive, animated body language predicts long-term charismatic leadership. People who move with openness, who gesture naturally, who let emotion flow through their movements without restraint or stiffness. These are the people who tend to be remembered as leaders. Not because they're louder or more aggressive, but because their bodies tell a story of confidence and ease. They don't hold back. They don't shrink. They occupy space in a way that feels natural and inviting. And over time, this quality doesn't just create a good first impression. It builds lasting influence. But let's zoom in even closer. Because it's not just about movement in general. It's about those very first moments. The instant you walk into a room. The moment you make eye contact. The way you stand. The way you smile. These early signals, posture, smile, eye contact, heavily shape how you're remembered. Think about someone you found instantly likable. Chances are, they smiled genuinely when they saw you. They stood with an open posture. They looked at you like you mattered. And in that brief exchange, something clicked. You felt seen. You felt comfortable. That wasn't an accident. That was the body speaking a language of warmth and presence. And it happened in seconds. So here's the hook. the quiet truth we're uncovering. Before you speak, your body has already spoken. You've already sent a message. And the question is, what message are you sending? Are you signaling confidence or uncertainty? Openness or defense? Warmth or distance? This isn't about being fake. It's about recognizing that your body is always in conversation with the world around you. And if you want to be truly charismatic, you need to understand what your body is saying, even when you're not aware of it. Now let's go deeper. Because while it's true that people judge you quickly based on external signals, the story doesn't start there. The story starts inside you. Charisma isn't something you put on like a costume. It's not a mask you wear or a script you follow. Real charisma, the kind that feels authentic and magnetic, comes from somewhere deeper. It comes from your internal state. And here's the part that many people miss. Your internal emotional state leaks through your body language. Always. No matter how hard you try to hide it. If you're feeling anxious, even if you're smiling and nodding and trying to act calm, that anxiety shows up. It shows up in the tension of your shoulders, in the quickness of your breath, in the way your hands fidget or your eyes dart around the room. People might not consciously notice these things, but they feel them. There's a subtle dissonance, a sense that something's off, even if they can't name it. And that dissonance breaks the spell of charisma. Because charisma requires congruence. It requires your inside and your outside to match. This is where things get really interesting. Because the relationship between your body and your emotions isn't one way. It's a loop. Your emotions shape your body, yes, but your body also shapes your emotions. Body posture feeds back into your mood and confidence. When you slouch, when you cross your arms, when you make yourself small, you're not just signaling low confidence to others. You're signaling it to yourself. Your brain reads your posture and interprets it as a sign of weakness or defeat. And that interpretation reinforces the very feelings you're trying to escape. But the reverse is also true. When you stand upright, when you open your chest, when you relax your shoulders and breathe deeply, something shifts. Upright posture and relaxed breathing reduce anxiety. This has been tested and measured. People who adopt expansive, open postures report feeling more confident, more powerful, more at ease. It's not magic. It's biology. Your body is constantly sending feedback to your brain, and your brain listens. So if you want to feel more charismatic, one of the simplest and most effective places to start is with your body. But here's the warning. Here's the trap that so many people fall into. Faking charisma without alignment looks stiff or incongruent. You've probably seen this. Someone who's trying too hard. Someone who's using all the right gestures and all the right words, but something feels off. They're performing. And performance, when it's not rooted in genuine feeling, creates distance. People can sense it. They might not be able to articulate why, but they feel that something isn't quite real. And that feeling erodes trust. So the message here is simple, but profound. You don't perform charisma. You generate it. You generate it by aligning your internal state with your external expression. By feeling the confidence you want to project. By cultivating the warmth, the curiosity, the presence that naturally flows into your body language. And when that alignment happens, when your inside matches your outside, that's when real charisma emerges. Not as a trick, not as a technique, but as an authentic expression of who you are at your best. And that's the journey we're exploring tonight. How charisma is built. How it's learned. Not through clever manipulation, but through deep understanding. Understanding of how quickly people read you. Understanding of how powerfully your body speaks. And understanding of how your internal world shapes everything you communicate, even in silence. So as you settle in, as you let these ideas wash over you, just notice. Notice how you're sitting right now. Notice your breath. Notice the subtle signals your body is sending, even as you rest. Because even now, even in stillness, your body is speaking. And learning to listen to that language, learning to align it with the person you want to become, that's where the real transformation begins. Rest easy. Let these thoughts settle. And know that charisma, true charisma, isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more fully yourself. Power doesn't announce itself with words. It doesn't need to. Power is quieter than that. It lives in the way you hold yourself, in the space you occupy, in the silent language your body speaks before you've even opened your mouth. And if you want to understand charisma, if you want to build it from the ground up, you need to understand this fundamental truth. Power begins with the body. Let's start with something simple. Something you can feel right now. Your posture. The way you're sitting or lying down in this moment. And here's what the research tells us, consistently, across dozens of studies. Open posture signals confidence and competence. When you stand or sit with your shoulders back, your chest open, your arms relaxed at your sides, or gesturing freely, you're sending a clear message. Not just to others, but to yourself. You're saying, I belong here. I'm comfortable. I'm capable. And people read that signal instantly. Think about someone you consider naturally charismatic. Picture them in your mind. Notice how they carry themselves. Chances are, they don't hunch. They don't make themselves small. They occupy space with a kind of easy confidence. Not arrogance. Not aggression. Just presence. And that presence starts with the foundation of an open body. A body that doesn't apologize for existing. A body that signals strength without tension, readiness without fear. Now consider the opposite. Slouching and closed posture signal low confidence. When your shoulders roll forward, when your chest collapses, when you cross your arms tightly or tuck your chin down, your body is telling a different story. It's a story of self-protection, of withdrawal, of uncertainty. And again, this message travels in two directions. Other people read it and unconsciously adjust their perception of you. They might not think, this person lacks confidence, but they feel it. They sense it in the subtle cues your body provides. And just as powerfully, your own brain reads these signals. When you slouch, when you make yourself small, your nervous system interprets that as a sign of threat or defeat. And it responds accordingly, with lower energy, more anxiety, less clarity. But here's where it gets fascinating. Because researchers have discovered something remarkable about the relationship between your body and your mind. Power poses increased feelings of confidence. You've probably heard about this. The idea that standing in an expansive, open position, even for just a couple of minutes, can actually change how you feel inside. And while the science continues to evolve and debate the exact mechanisms, one thing is clear. When you adopt a powerful posture, something shifts. You feel more capable, more grounded, more ready. Why does this happen? Because your body is constantly feeding information to your brain about your status, your safety, your readiness to engage with the world. Expansive poses signal high status. Contracted poses signal submission. This isn't cultural. This is biological. Watch animals in the wild. The dominant ones make themselves big. They take up space. The submissive ones make themselves small. They curl inward. We're not so different. Our nervous systems read the same signals. And when you expand your body, when you open your chest and lift your head, your brain receives a message. It says you're strong. You're in control. You're safe to engage. And here's the practical application. Taking up reasonable space signals comfort and authority. Notice that word. Reasonable. This isn't about dominating a room or sprawling obnoxiously across shared space. It's about not shrinking. It's about standing with your feet shoulder width apart instead of pressed together. It's about letting your arms rest naturally instead of locking them across your chest. It's about sitting upright instead of hunching over. These small adjustments, these subtle shifts in how you occupy physical space, they accumulate into a powerful signal. A signal that says, I'm comfortable here. I have a right to be here. And when you send that signal, others receive it. They lean in. They listen. They trust. So before you worry about what to say, before you practice your words or rehearse your pitch, start here. Start with your body. Stand up right now if you can. Roll your shoulders back. Lift your chest. Take a deep breath that fills your lungs completely. Feel the difference. That's not just physical. That's psychological. That's the foundation of charismatic presence. And it begins with understanding that power, real power, starts with how you hold yourself in space. Now, let's talk about the face. Because while your body creates the foundation of presence, your face creates connection. Your face is where warmth lives, where authenticity shows itself, and where, if you're not careful, charisma can die in an instant. Here's something beautiful and simple. Genuine smiles increase warmth and likability. When you smile, really smile, with your whole face, something happens. Your eyes crinkle. Your cheeks lift. There's a light that comes through, an openness that people can feel. And that feeling is magnetic. People are drawn to warmth. They're drawn to the sense that you're happy to see them, that you're present with them, that there's something genuine happening in the moment. A real smile communicates all of that without a single word. But here's the catch. And it's a big one. Fake smiles are detected more easily than people think. You know the smile I'm talking about. The one that only involves the mouth. The professional smile. The polite smile. The smile that says, I'm supposed to smile right now, so here's my smile. It doesn't reach the eyes. It doesn't change the energy of the face. And people pick up on that. They might not consciously think that smile is fake, but they feel it. There's a hollowness to it, a lack of genuine connection. And that lack creates distance instead of closeness. This matters more than most people realize. Because in the quest to be likable, to be charismatic, many people default to constant smiling. But charisma isn't about smiling all the time. It's about authenticity. It's about matching. Facial expressions should match the emotional context. If someone is sharing something difficult, a big smile is jarring. It feels disconnected. What creates connection in that moment is a face that reflects understanding, that mirrors the gravity of what's being shared. Empathy. Presence. Not performance. This is what researchers call emotional congruence. And emotional congruence increases trust. When your facial expressions align with the emotional reality of a situation, people feel safe with you. They feel seen. They sense that you're truly present, not just going through the motions. And that sensing, that feeling of being met where they are, is one of the most powerful foundations of charismatic connection. But there's a shadow side to this. A warning. Because just as genuine expressions build trust, incongruent expressions destroy it. And some expressions are particularly toxic. Micro-expressions of contempt or disgust can instantly damage charisma. These are tiny flickers. A slight curl of the lip. A momentary narrowing of the eyes. They last less than a second, but they register. People see them, even if only subconsciously. And when they do, trust evaporates. Because contempt and disgust signal rejection. They signal, I'm above you. You're beneath me. I don't respect you. And no one, absolutely no one, wants to follow someone who makes them feel that way. Here's the hard truth. Charisma dies when your face betrays you. You can say all the right things. You can use all the right techniques. But if your face is sending a different message, if there's a mismatch between your words and your expressions, people will believe your face. They'll trust what they see over what they hear. Because facial expressions are harder to fake. They're more immediate, more primal, and they cut through pretense faster than anything else. So what does this mean practically? It means you need to cultivate genuine warmth. Not performed warmth. Real warmth. The kind that comes from actually caring about the people in front of you. From being curious about them. From finding something to appreciate, even in difficult moments. When that genuine feeling is there, your face shows it naturally. Your smiles are real. Your expressions match the moment. And people feel it. They feel seen. They feel valued. And that feeling is the essence of charismatic connection. And if you're not feeling it, if you're tired, or frustrated, or disconnected, then don't fake it. Because the fakeness shows. Instead, take a breath. Reset. Find something, anything, that helps you reconnect with a sense of presence and warmth. Maybe it's thinking of someone you love. Maybe it's remembering why you're here. Maybe it's just being honest with yourself about what you're feeling, so that honesty can flow through you instead of being masked by a brittle smile. Your face is powerful. More powerful than you probably realize. It can open doors or close them. It can build bridges or burn them. And the key is understanding that charisma at the level of the face isn't about control. It's about alignment. It's about letting your face reflect what's true inside you. And making sure that what's true inside you is worth reflecting. So as you rest tonight, As these ideas settle into your awareness, just notice your own face. Notice when you're genuinely smiling. Notice when you're not. Notice the difference between a real expression and a performed one. And start to cultivate that awareness, not so you can manipulate, but so you can be more fully present, more fully authentic, more fully yourself. Because charisma, in the end, isn't about tricks. It's about truth. Truth in your body. Truth in your face. Truth in the way you show up in the world. And when that truth is grounded in warmth and confidence, in genuine connection, that's when real charisma emerges. Not as something you do, but as something you are. Rest now. Let your face relax. Let your body settle. And trust that as you understand these principles more deeply, they'll begin to shape you, naturally, authentically, and powerfully. There's a moment in every conversation that determines everything. A moment where connection either happens, or it doesn't. And that moment lives in the eyes. In the simple act of looking at someone. Really looking. Not glancing. Not scanning. But seeing them. Because here's the truth that every charismatic person understands, intuitively or through practice. People feel charisma when they feel seen. Let's start with something fundamental. Friendly eye contact signals confidence and honesty. When you look someone in the eye, when you meet their gaze with steadiness and warmth, you're communicating something powerful. You're saying, I'm here. I'm present. I'm not afraid of you. And I'm not hiding from you. This is one of the oldest signals of trust in human interaction. Animals that are threatened look away. Animals that are aggressive stare with intensity. But animals, and people, who are confident and open, they hold gaze in a way that's steady but not threatening. Engaged but not invasive. And that balance, that sweet spot of eye contact, creates an immediate sense of connection. Think about the people you trust most in your life. When you talk with them, they look at you. Not past you. Not at their phone. At you. And in those moments of real eye contact, something happens. You feel valued. You feel heard. You feel like what you're saying matters. That's not an accident. That's the power of attention. And attention, genuine attention communicated through the eyes, is one of the most magnetic forces in human interaction. But here's where it gets tricky. Because eye contact is a balance. The ideal eye contact is frequent but not staring. You've felt the difference. There's the person who holds your gaze naturally, breaking away occasionally to think or gesture, but always returning to meet your eyes. That feels good. That feels like connection. And then there's the person who locks onto your eyes and never looks away. That doesn't feel good. That feels intense, uncomfortable, maybe even aggressive. The same tool, eye contact, used in two different ways, creates completely different experiences. So what's the right amount? Research suggests that in Western cultures, maintaining eye contact about 60 to 70% of the time during conversation feels natural and engaging. You look at the person while they're speaking, showing you're listening. You look at them while you're speaking, showing confidence. And you occasionally look away to think, to process, to give both of you a moment to breathe. This rhythm, this natural ebb and flow of visual attention, creates comfort. It creates trust. It creates the foundation for charismatic presence. Now consider what happens when this doesn't occur. Avoiding eye contact weakens presence. When you look down or away or at anything but the person you're talking with, you send a signal. Not necessarily a conscious one, but a signal nonetheless. It suggests discomfort, disinterest, maybe even dishonesty. People begin to wonder, unconsciously, why aren't they looking at me? What are they hiding? Do they not care about what I'm saying? And these questions, even when unspoken, create distance. They weaken the connection that charisma requires. This doesn't mean you need to be perfect. It doesn't mean every glance away is a disaster. But it does mean that if you habitually avoid eye contact, if you consistently look anywhere but at the person in front of you, your presence suffers. People don't feel seen. And when they don't feel seen, they don't feel drawn to you. The magnetic pull of charisma requires that feeling of being noticed, of mattering, of being worth someone's full attention. And eye contact is just the beginning, because there are other nonverbal signals that work in harmony with your gaze to build connection. Nods and subtle head movements build rapport. You've done this 1,000 times without thinking about it. Someone is talking and you nod. Just a small movement. A gentle tilt of the head. And what does that nod communicate? It says, I'm with you. I'm following. I understand. Keep going. These tiny movements create a feedback loop. The speaker feels encouraged. They feel heard. And they associate that good feeling with you, with your presence, with the sense that you're truly engaged. This is part of what researchers call nonverbal immediacy. And nonverbal immediacy increases liking and closeness. Immediacy behaviors are the small signals that say, I'm present, I'm open, I'm engaged with you right now. Leaning in slightly. Orienting your body toward the person. Responsive facial expressions. And yes, that warm, frequent eye contact we've been discussing. All of these together create a sense of closeness, even with people you've just met. They collapse the distance between stranger and friend, between formal and familiar. And here's what's beautiful about this. These aren't manipulative tricks. These are the natural behaviors of genuine connection. When you truly care about what someone is saying, when you're genuinely interested in them, these behaviors happen automatically. Your body naturally orients toward them. Your eyes naturally meet theirs. Your head naturally nods in response. The magic happens when you become conscious of these patterns, not so you can fake them, but so you can remove the barriers that prevent them from flowing naturally. Because sometimes we're anxious. Sometimes we're self-conscious. Sometimes we're so caught up in our own heads that we forget to actually look at the person in front of us. And in those moments, understanding these principles gives us something to return to. A reminder. Look at them. Really see them. Let them feel your attention. Because in a world of constant distraction, of phones and notifications and wandering minds, the simple act of giving someone your full visual attention is rare and powerful and deeply charismatic. So remember, people feel charisma when they feel seen, not examined, not evaluated, seen, recognized, acknowledged. And that recognition begins with your eyes, with the courage to look at someone and let them look back, with the wisdom to balance that gaze, keeping it warm and present without becoming intense or uncomfortable. Master this, and you've mastered one of the most fundamental tools of human connection. But eye contact and body language, as powerful as they are, only tell part of the story. Because there's another dimension to charisma. Another layer that operates beneath conscious awareness, but shapes perception just as profoundly. And that dimension is your voice. Your voice is an invisible power tool. You can't see it. You can't touch it. But you can feel it. And the way you use your voice, the tone, the rhythm, the energy behind it, shapes how people experience you in ways that are subtle but extraordinarily powerful. Let's start with the fundamentals. Vocal tone, pitch, and pacing strongly influence charisma. Think about someone you find captivating to listen to. Maybe a speaker, a teacher, a friend who always has everyone's attention when they tell a story. What is it about their voice? Chances are, it's not just what they're saying. It's how they're saying it. The warmth in their tone. The rhythm of their pacing. The way their voice rises and falls, creating a kind of music underneath the words. This is vocal charisma. And it operates powerfully, often more powerfully than the words themselves. Research has found something interesting about pitch. Slightly lower pitch signals leadership. Not dramatically lower. Not forced or artificial. But voices that have a bit more depth, that resonate from the chest rather than the throat, tend to be perceived as more authoritative, more confident, more leader-like. Why? Partly because lower pitch suggests physical size and strength, qualities that are evolutionary past associated with dominance and protection. But also because a lower, fuller voice suggests calmness, control. Someone who's not anxious or rushed, but grounded and present. This doesn't mean everyone needs to sound like a radio announcer. It means that if your voice tends to rise when you're nervous, if it becomes thin or strained under pressure, finding ways to ground it, to bring it back down to its natural, relaxed pitch, will increase your charismatic presence. And often, this happens naturally when you slow down, when you breathe, when you release tension from your throat, and let your voice resonate from deeper in your body. But pitch alone isn't enough, because a voice that stays at one level, one tone, one pace, becomes monotonous. It loses attention. This is where variation comes in. Varying pitch and pauses keeps attention. Think about a great storyteller. Their voice doesn't stay flat. It rises with excitement. It drops to a whisper for something important. It speeds up during action. It slows down for emphasis. This variation creates emotional texture. It keeps the listener engaged, wondering what's coming next, feeling the energy shift and flow. And here's a secret that many people overlook. Strategic silence increases perceived confidence. Pauses. Moments of quiet between thoughts. These aren't weaknesses. They're powerful. When someone speaks without pausing, racing from word to word, thought to thought, it suggests nervousness. It suggests they're afraid that if they stop talking, they'll lose your attention, or someone will interrupt, or they'll lose their train of thought. But when someone speaks and then pauses, lets the words land, lets the moment breathe, that pause communicates confidence. It says, I'm not afraid of silence. I trust that what I'm saying is weight. I trust that you're engaged enough to wait for what comes next. Imagine two people saying the same sentence. The first rushes through it. I think we should consider a different approach because what we're doing now isn't working and we need to change direction. Fast, unbroken, mildly anxious. Now imagine the second person. I think we should consider a different approach. What we're doing now isn't working. We need to change direction. Same words. But the pauses, the deliberate pacing, the moments of silence, they transform the delivery. They make it feel more thoughtful, more certain, more powerful. This is the difference between speaking to fill space and speaking with intention. And intention, expressed through vocal pacing and strategic silence, is charismatic. It draws people in. It makes them lean forward and listen more carefully. Now, let's talk about what undermines all of this. Rushed speech and fillers reduce authority. We all do it. Like. You know? These verbal fillers, these sounds we make while our brain catches up to our mouth, they're natural. But they're costly. Each one chips away at the perception of confidence and competence. Each one suggests that we're not quite sure what we're saying, or that we're uncomfortable with silence, or that we haven't fully thought through what we want to communicate. And rushed speech has a similar effect. When you speak too quickly, people can't fully process what you're saying. They feel overwhelmed. They feel like they're chasing your words rather than receiving them. And more importantly, rushed speech communicates anxiety. It suggests that you're uncomfortable, that you want to get through this as quickly as possible, that you don't quite believe what you're saying deserves space and time. So what's the solution? Slow down. Breathe. Give your words room to land. And when you feel a filler word rising, just pause instead. Let there be a moment of silence. It will feel longer to you than it does to your listener. You'll want to fill it, but resist. Because that moment of quiet, that brief pause while you gather your thought, actually makes you sound more confident, more thoughtful, more charismatic. Think of it this way. If someone asked you a meaningful question and you immediately responded without any pause, would that feel more or less thoughtful than if you paused, considered, and then spoke? The pause suggests you're taking the question seriously. You're thinking. You're formulating a genuine response rather than a reflexive one. And people respect that. They're drawn to it. Your voice is one of your most powerful tools for creating charismatic presence. It operates underneath the level of conscious awareness, shaping how people feel about you, how much they trust you, how closely they listen. And the beautiful thing is, it's entirely within your control. You can practice speaking more slowly. You can practice lowering your pitch slightly, letting your voice resonate more fully. You can practice varying your tone and using pauses deliberately. And as you do, as these patterns become more natural, you'll notice something. People lean in. They listen more closely. They remember what you say, not because your words changed, but because the way you delivered them transformed. So as you drift towards sleep tonight, as these ideas settle into your consciousness, just notice your own voice. Even in your thoughts, notice the rhythm, the pace, the tone, and start to imagine what it might feel like to speak with more intention, more presence, more of that grounded, varied, confident quality that draws people in and holds their attention. Not because you're performing, but because you're fully present in your own voice. And that presence is magnetic. The way you move through the world speaks volumes. Not just when you're standing still talking, making eye contact, but when you're in motion. When you walk across a room, when you shift your weight, when your hands move or don't move. Because every movement, every gesture, every shift in your physical presence is part of the story you're telling. And that story shapes how people perceive you. Let's talk about engagement. True engagement isn't passive. When you're genuinely interested, genuinely present with someone or something, your body shows it. You lean in slightly. Your gestures become more animated, more expressive. There's a flow to your movement that suggests ease and involvement. This is the body language of someone who's comfortable, who's connected, who's fully there in the moment. And people pick up on this. They feel your engagement through your movement, through the energy and intentionality you bring to your physical presence. But engagement has an opposite. And you've seen it, probably more times than you'd like. Fidgeting signals anxiety. The constant shifting. The tapping fingers. The bouncing leg. The playing with hair, with jewelry, with whatever object happens to be nearby. These movements are self-soothing behaviors. They're the body's attempt to discharge nervous energy. And while they're completely natural, completely human, they come with a cost. Because fidgeting communicates uncertainty. It tells the people around you that you're uncomfortable, that you're not fully in control, that there's an underlying anxiety rippling beneath the surface. Now, this doesn't mean you need to sit completely still like a statue. That would look equally unnatural, equally uncomfortable. But it does mean becoming aware of unnecessary movement. Movement that doesn't serve communication or comfort, but instead broadcasts nervousness. When you catch yourself fidgeting, see if you can redirect that energy. Take a breath. Place your hands deliberately in a comfortable position. Ground yourself in your body. This small shift, from reactive fidgeting to deliberate stillness, transforms how people perceive you. It signals control, presence, confidence. And then there's how you move through space itself. Upright, deliberate walking increases perceived status. Think about someone you consider powerful or charismatic. Picture how they walk. They don't rush. They don't shuffle. They move with intention. Their posture is upright, shoulders back, head level. Each step is deliberate, not hurried or hesitant. There's a quality to their movement that suggests they know where they're going, and they have every right to be there. This isn't arrogance. It's assuredness. And it's magnetic. Compare that to someone who walks quickly with their head down, shoulders hunched, eyes on the ground. Or someone whose movements are jerky, uncertain, constantly changing direction or pace. The contrast is striking. Because movement isn't just about getting from point A to point B. It's about how you occupy space while you're doing it. It's about the energy you bring. And jittery movement reduces magnetism. When your movements are erratic, when there's no smoothness or flow to how you carry yourself, people perceive instability. They sense that you're not grounded, not centered, not in control of yourself. And if you're not in control of yourself, why would they trust you to lead, to guide, to be worth following? So here's the principle that ties all of this together. Controlled movement equals controlled presence. When you move with intention, when your gestures are purposeful rather than reactive, when your walk has a rhythm and steadiness to it, you're demonstrating control. Not rigid control. Not forced control. But the kind of control that comes from being fully present in your body, aware of how you're moving through the world. And that control, that groundedness, is powerfully charismatic. This might sound like a lot to think about. How am I sitting? How am I standing? How am I walking? But the beautiful thing is, you don't need to consciously manage every movement. What you need is awareness. Awareness of your baseline patterns. Do you fidget when nervous? Do you rush when walking? Do you make jerky, uncertain movements? Once you're aware, you can begin to shift. Not by forcing yourself into some unnatural pattern, but by practicing deliberate movement. Walking slowly and upright on purpose. Placing your hands consciously. Breathing into stillness instead of fidgeting through anxiety. And over time, these conscious choices become unconscious habits. They become your new baseline. And your presence transforms. Now, let's shift our focus. Because charisma isn't just about how you hold yourself. It's also about how you relate to others. How you navigate the invisible dynamics of social interaction. And this is where social intelligence comes in. The ability to read others, to adapt, to create connection without manipulation. One of the most powerful tools in social connection is subtle mirroring. This happens naturally in conversations between people who feel connected. One person crosses their legs, and a moment later, the other does too. One leans forward, and the other mirrors that movement. One adjusts their speaking pace, and the other unconsciously matches it. This isn't conscious mimicry. It's the body's way of saying, I'm with you. We're connected. We're in sync. And research shows that subtle mirroring increases rapport. When you naturally reflect elements of another person's body language, their posture, their energy, they feel more comfortable with you. They feel understood. They feel that sense of connection that's so essential to charisma. But here's the critical word in that description. Subtle. Because over-mirroring feels fake and manipulative. You probably experienced this. Someone who too obviously copies your gestures, your posture, your speaking style. It doesn't feel good. It feels like they're performing. Like they're using a technique rather than genuinely connecting. And that feeling of being manipulated, even if the person means well, destroys trust. It creates distance instead of closeness. So how do you mirror effectively? You don't think about it too much. You don't consciously copy every gesture. Instead, you stay present and open with the person you're talking to. You let your body naturally pick up on their energy, their rhythm. And you allow subtle alignments to happen organically. Maybe you notice they're speaking softly, and you soften your voice a bit too. Maybe they're leaning back in a relaxed posture, and you allow yourself to relax as well. These aren't calculated moves. They're natural responses to being genuinely attuned to another person. And attunement requires something else. Something that many people overlook. Respecting personal space builds trust. Every person has an invisible bubble around them, a zone of comfort where they feel safe. That zone varies by person, by culture, by context. But it's always there. And when you respect it, when you maintain an appropriate distance, people feel safe with you. They feel that you understand boundaries, that you're not intrusive, that you're someone who can be trusted to respect their autonomy and comfort. The opposite is equally true. Standing too close triggers defensiveness. When someone violates your personal space, your body reacts. Your nervous system activates. You might not consciously think, this person is too close, but you feel it. A tension, an urge to step back, a sense that your boundaries are being crossed. And that feeling, that subtle discomfort, undermines any possibility of charismatic connection. Because charisma requires comfort. It requires a sense of safety and ease. And you can't feel safe with someone who doesn't respect your space. So what's the right distance? In Western cultures, it's generally about 2 to 4 feet for casual conversation, closer for friends and intimates, further for strangers or formal settings. But the real skill isn't memorizing measurements. It's reading the other person. Are they leaning in or pulling back? Are they relaxed or tense? Their body will tell you if you're at the right distance. And adjusting to cultural norms increases charisma, because different cultures have different comfort zones. What feels friendly in one culture might feel invasive in another. What feels respectful in one context might feel cold and distant in another. The charismatic person doesn't assume. They pay attention. They notice. They adjust. Not because they're calculating, but because they genuinely care about making others comfortable. And that care, that attentiveness to the invisible boundaries that shape human interaction, is part of what makes them magnetic. People feel safe around them, respected, understood, and those feelings are the foundation of genuine connection. This is social intelligence, not manipulation, not tricks, but genuine awareness of the dynamics between people and the flexibility to adapt in ways that honor both yourself and others. When you combine this awareness with the physical presence we've been discussing, with the controlled movement, the deliberate posture, the engaging eye contact, you're building something powerful. You're building charismatic presence that feels authentic because it is authentic, grounded in real attention, real respect, real connection. But there's still a paradox to resolve. A tension that sits at the heart of charisma. And understanding this tension, navigating it skillfully, is what separates truly charismatic people from those who simply have presence or warmth alone. Here's the paradox. Dominant signals alone can feel intimidating. Think about someone who only projects power, strong posture, commanding voice, taking up space, never wavering, never softening. What do you feel around that person? Maybe respect, maybe even fear. But do you feel warmth? Do you feel drawn to them? Do you want to open up, to connect, to be vulnerable? Probably not. Because pure dominance, untempered by warmth, creates distance. It puts you on guard. It makes the interaction feel like a competition or a hierarchy rather than a connection. Now consider the opposite. Warm signals alone can feel weak. Someone who's all smiles and softness, who always agrees, who never takes a stand or shows strength. You might like that person. You might feel comfortable around them. But do you respect them? Do you see them as a leader? Do you feel inspired or energized by their presence? Probably not. Because pure warmth, without any strength or groundedness, can feel insubstantial. It can feel like the person is trying too hard to please, or that they lack the backbone to hold their own in difficult situations. This is where most people fail. They lean too far in one direction. They either prioritize strength and competence at the expense of warmth and approachability, or they prioritize likability and niceness at the expense of authority and respect. And both approaches, while they have their place, fall short of true charisma. Because true charisma balances power and warmth. It says, I'm strong and I'm kind. I'm confident and I'm approachable. I can lead and I can listen. This balance is the sweet spot. The place where dominance and warmth meet and create something greater than either alone. And when you hit that balance, something remarkable happens. Dual signals create strong psychological bonds. People feel both safe and inspired around you. They respect you and they like you. They see you as competent and caring. And that combination is incredibly rare and incredibly powerful. Think about the leaders you most admire. The teachers who changed your life. The friends who command respect without trying. Chances are, they embody this balance. They're not pushovers. They have opinions. They take stands. They carry themselves with confidence and authority. But they're also warm. They listen. They care. They make you feel valued even as they challenge you to grow. That's the charisma sweet spot. And it's where the magic happens. Here's the key insight. Charisma isn't loud. It's balanced. It's not about dominating every room or being the life of every party. It's about being fully present with a blend of strength and warmth that makes people feel both energized and safe in your presence. It's about knowing when to be strong and when to be soft, when to speak and when to listen, when to take up space and when to make space for others. This balance isn't static. It shifts based on context, on the people you're with, on what the moment requires. But the underlying principle remains. Power without warmth is intimidating. Warmth without power is weak. Together, in balance, they create charisma. And here's the really good news, the message that brings all of this together and points toward possibility. Charisma is learnable. It's not something you're born with or without. It's not a fixed personality trait that some people have and others don't. Charisma is a set of learnable nonverbal skills. Every element we've discussed, the posture, the eye contact, the vocal tone, the movement, the balance of warmth and strength, all of it can be practiced. All of it can be developed. All of it can become part of who you are. Think about that for a moment. Every person you've ever found charismatic, every person who seems to effortlessly draw others in, they weren't necessarily born that way. They learned. Maybe unconsciously through thousands of social interactions. Maybe consciously through deliberate practice. But they learned. And what can be learned can be taught. What can be taught can be practiced. And what can be practiced can be mastered. So where do you start? You practice presence, posture, voice, and expression. You start noticing how you hold your body. You start becoming aware of your eye contact patterns. You start listening to your own voice, noticing when it's grounded and when it's strained. You start paying attention to your facial expressions, to whether they match what you're feeling and what the moment requires. These aren't massive changes. They're small adjustments. Tiny shifts in awareness and behavior. But here's what's remarkable. Small adjustments create massive perception shifts. You don't need to transform your entire personality. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to refine how you're already showing up. Stand a little more upright. Hold eye contact a little longer. Speak a little more slowly. Smile a little more genuinely. These micro-adjustments, practiced consistently, accumulate into a completely different presence. People notice. They respond differently. They lean in. They listen. They remember you. And the best part? Charisma compounds over time. Every interaction where you practice these skills makes the next one easier. Every moment of presence builds your capacity for future presence. Every time you balance warmth and strength, that balance becomes more natural, more effortless. You're not just learning techniques. You're rewiring patterns. You're becoming the kind of person who naturally embodies these qualities. And that transformation, that journey from conscious practice to unconscious mastery, is one of the most empowering things you can undertake. So as you drift towards sleep, as these ideas settle into your mind, let yourself imagine. Imagine walking into a room with upright posture and deliberate movement. Imagine making eye contact that's warm and steady. Imagine speaking with a voice that's grounded and varied, with pauses that feel confident rather than anxious. Imagine balancing strength and warmth in a way that makes people feel both inspired and safe. You don't have to do it all perfectly. You just have to start. One small adjustment at a time. One moment of awareness at a time. And over time, those moments add up. They compound. They transform you. Charisma isn't magic. It's not reserved for the special few. It's a skill. A learnable, practicable, developable skill. And you have everything you need to begin building it. Right now. Starting with awareness. Starting with intention. Starting with the simple recognition that how you show up in the world matters. And that you have the power to shape it. Rest now. Let these principles sink in. And trust that with practice, with patience, with consistency, you'll begin to embody the very qualities we've been exploring. Not as a performance, but as an expression of who you're becoming. Charismatic, present, balanced, and deeply, authentically magnetic.